Have you ever stopped to think about it? At times, the nature seems to be on the joke with us. She has a sense of humor is so sharp that it even without the words, and is able to surprise us, laughing at our face, and to give us a lesson in the most unexpected. As it is what happened in Wichita, Kansas, which is going to make you rethink all of this. And the really amazing thing, it is a true story, which happened to be the truth in the middle of the day under the blue sky, and the sun was warm, as if it were a scene in a comedy movie. Have you ever gone through a situation that seemed to be the output of a show? So, stay with me till the end because this story ends in a way that not even a writer of comedy would have the courage to come up with. Think about it. You park your car, in a quiet, thinking about your day, and all of a sudden, everything changed. A thief, tattoo, with the face of one who has seen it all is about to steal a car, which, in his opinion, it looks like a work of art is valuable, too, to get it to stop. This is the one scenario in the classic parking lot of an apartment building, just like normal, until the target comes into action, with all the confidence, all the while thinking that it's going to get her out of there, with his or her prize. But what he doesn't realize is that, at times, the nature has a different plan. And there you have it, my friend, is that the story starts to get really interesting. Can you imagine the scene? The thief, if you think that the owner of the hill, entering the four-wheel drive, with all the arrogance, turning the key in the force, as if he were the king of the world, not knowing that he was on the verge of becoming the protagonist in one of the stories of the most hilarious ever seen by anyone who happened to be there. And it is precisely at this point that everything changes. That's the routine. It becomes a true comedy of errors. Because sometimes, we think that the universe conspires in favor of or against it, but the truth is, he just loves to do some pranks as well in a creative way. And, as you'll see, this is one of them. It prepares you for your attention to, because what's coming next is going to surprise you in a way you didn't expect. You will find that when nature decides to take action, it will not play in service. It may seem unbelievable, even funny, but it is a lesson that is at times, it seems to be a simple story of a robbery that ends up with a plot twist that only real life can give you. And the best part? You don't even know what really happened behind the whole film. Now, in order to understand what is really behind all of this, we need to go to the next step. Sometimes life will surprise us in ways not imagined, and it seemed to be as simple, turns out to reveal the deepest layers, which are full of meaning and connection. It was as if the universe had its own way of showing us that everything is connected, even when everything seems to be spinning out of control. And at this point, it is the feeling that we are all part of something greater than we can understand at the time, a story that takes place quietly, but with a force that touches the heart. When we pause to reflect on these moments, you realize that each and every detail, every reaction, every choice is part of a complex mosaic, where the target and the feelings and emotions are woven together. And it is here that we understand that what happened to them, no matter how simple it may seem, was carrying an important message. That is, many times, we need to look beyond the surface and listen to what the silence has to say and to trust in the natural flow of life. Because, in the end, it all has a purpose even if it is not immediately obvious. If the story made sense to you, leave it here in the comments that most touched his heart, or what kind of experience you have already lived, and that's why they look beyond the obvious. I love to read each and every story, every feeling that you share. It connects people in ways that words can't fully express. And if this conversation resonated with you, and enjoy the video because it will help to spread this important message. In addition to this, if you want to continue to explore these themes with me, and you take the chance to subscribe to the channel. This step is an opportunity to build on this journey of discovery, and to build the community that believes in the power of the understanding, and the connection is genuine. Right now, for us to continue to deepen this topic, there's something even more important what you need to understand. Right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that is the truth of it is that, too often, we get so caught up in the business of day-to-day life, our routine, that we forget one key thing, a real connection with those who are, in fact. And, in this connection, most of the time, it's there, hidden beneath layers of fear, the doubts, and the expectations that are imposed by the external world. It is as if, in the course of time, we have been building up a range of shades and the concepts that we have turned away from the essence of that feeling, pure in that voice inside you that has always tried to lead us through it. So, when do we begin to understand this disconnect? There is a feeling of emptiness, as if they were living a life that is truly ours, only a repetition of patterns, and of the expectations that others have for us. This is a feeling of discomfort, which is, in fact, it is a clue. A light begins to light up in our conscience by saying, hey, there's something more, click here. Something that needs to be discovered, understood, and taken. And it is at this point that a lot of people who feel the call to the transformation of a wake-up call that it is almost in a whisper, a memory of something that, for whatever reason, has been largely forgotten. It's as a quiet, going back to his roots, to find the you that you really matter, to reconnect with your true essence, to the dreams that have been buried under the weight of the routine, with all the wishes that have been silenced by fear. This process is not easy, because you need to have the courage to look within, to experience the things that a lot of times we would prefer to hide it, deny it, or simply ignore it. The real voyage of self-discovery is like a journey through a sea of emotions and of the truths we often prefer not to see. And, in this way, we have learned that the greatest secret is out there on the opinions of others, or in the affairs of the outside, but within us, in our capacity to listen to that inner voice, understanding that he or she really wants to say to us. This is the moment when we realize that change doesn't come from something external, but an internal decision to allow yourself to feel it, to allow himself to be vulnerable, to accept that we are in a state of constant transformation. And, in doing so, we begin to see with clarity who we really are, beyond the mask, beyond your expectations. We have found that, in essence, we are so much more than you might think. Its strength lies in our vulnerability, our authenticity, and our ability to surrender to the process of evolution. And with this understanding, when it really sets in, you have the power to change everything around us. Because, as we are reconnecting with the truth, we begin to live more lightly on the planet, with more intention, and most of all love yourself. And it is here that we begin to realize that happiness lies not in the external validation and recognition of the world, but in our own acceptance and our peace of mind. And in that peace, which was created to align the real with who we are and gives us the strength to cope with any challenge, any storm, because we all know that, regardless of the circumstances, the core is still intact, pure, and true. And, well, life is a phrase that is more authentic to who you really are, the you on a journey of discovery, continuous, where every step brings us closer to more and more of our lives, more pure, more honest, more free. And it is precisely at this point that we realize that this quest is never ending. We are always on a journey of the evolution of self-acceptance, growing up. And in that, to embrace this day with a spirit of courage, as it becomes lighter, more beautiful, more full of meaning. Because, deep down, what you are looking for is not a final destination, but a continuous connection with the truth, a chance to rediscover each and every day, to learn, to let go, you grow. And, well, every experience, every challenge, every achievement, and if it becomes one part of this is our story, a unique story that only you can write it, and with all the authenticity and under the love that we have inside of us. And, in the process, we discover that the greatest gift that you can give to the world is, precisely, that's the most real, the most well-balanced and more connected with all that is most profound in all of us. Because, at the end of the day, it all comes down to that eternal search for who we are of the truth, and the courage to stand for the truth, without fear, without a mask, with a heart open to all that life brings to us. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. When you begin to immerse yourself in the universe of the self, we realize that many of our limitations, doubts, and conflicts that are rooted in a sort of mask, which we from time to time, a shade oftentimes, we feel that we protect them, but in fact it takes us away from the essence of it is true. And this distance is, the more it looks comfortable, or even safe, but it is the prison of the unseen, which prevents us from experiencing the freedom of being ourselves. It is as if we are carrying a burden that is quiet, a sort of armor, life, and although protect you from some of the wounds, it also prevents us from fully feel, connect with and experience the world and to the people around you. And, in the process of tearing down the barriers, to steal from the expectations of others and of our own limiting beliefs, we can begin to understand that true strength lies in vulnerability, and the courage to show who they really are, even if it leaves you exposed to it. Because, deep down, all of this, for acceptance, for approval, for validation, external, only reinforces the illusion that we need something beyond ourselves in order to be complete. And the biggest revelation is that the investment is already there within each and every one of us, just waiting for you to have the courage to find it again. We allow you this authenticity. We realize that the world around us also changes. The relationships that they gain a new depth, because they are no longer the surface and will reflect on our inner truth. And this time, it's the most lightweight, because we carry the burden of the expectations of others, and we begin to flow more in alignment of purpose. It is as if, to set us free from these false identities, and open the space for a genuine connection with what really matters to you. And the journey of discovering it, in fact, a true revolution of inner transformation happens from the inside out, from a silent but powerful And the more we connect with the essence, the more we realize that happiness is not something you seek out, but it's something that comes from within, the unconditional acceptance of who we are. In fact, many of the times, it is accompanied by a sense of relief, a kind of freedom that makes us see things more clearly, with more compassion and love for ourselves. It is at this point, it is clear that there is nothing more liberating than that, if you recognize in its entirety, with all its imperfections, doubts, fears, and dreams. Because, after all, and it is this authenticity that is our greatest strength, is our true beauty. And this is the strength, beauty, is the one that really starts to turn to our own realities, of our way of seeing the world, from the us, to relate to, and to live more lightly on the planet, and purpose. But to get to this point, you have to have the courage. The courage to look within, to experience what many of the times we would prefer to conceal or avoid it. It is a process of self-acceptance, which requires patience, compassion, and an array of genuine surrender to the unknown. And, in doing so, we realize that our journey is not a straight line but a spiral of ever-expanding, and where each discovery brings us to a whole new level of understanding. And, in it, we understand that it is the truth, the deeper it is always within our reach, hidden behind the fear or the doubt, hoping that we will have the courage to find it. I now want to go more in depth on this subject, because, as you explore the truth within, we realize that it is like a seed that can be planted with love and patience. It blooms in an authentic freedom, capable of transforming every aspect of our lives. And such a transformation, most of the changes to the outside, it is an internal revolution, and that it is born out of the recognition that all that we seek is already inside of us, waiting for the right moment to bloom. This is where it all makes sense when you connect with that essence. We've found that what really matters is not what other people think or expect of us, what we believe to be the truth. And, at this time, all lines of course, because we live in our own truth, not afraid to make a mistake, don't be afraid of who you really are. This authenticity is, in turn, attracts that which it is true to life, creating a kind of a stream of energy that propels you to move forward with a greater sense of confidence and hope. And when you understand it, and we believe that the greatest journey we can make is to become who you truly are, without masks, no games, just an open heart. Because, in the end, this is the only way to find peace, purpose, and fulfillment needs. And it's a connection to something deeper, a connection to the universe, pulsating inside of us, a harmony that makes us realize that we are part of something much bigger than we can imagine. It is as if each and every step of our journey would lead us to realize that our core is a light that never goes out, for a never-ending source of love, creativity, and strength. And the more we align ourselves with this light on, the more it lights up the path, even during the most difficult times, revealing that the real transformation begins within, and this processing is our most important contribution to the world around us. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. And, in doing so, we realize that true freedom comes from precisely this type of connection with our inner selves, more pure, and that which has not been shaped by the views of the outside, but it is, in truth, more intimate, more real. This is a wake-up call that leads us to realize that the greatest gift that you can give to the world, that is, in fact, our authenticity, and the courage to be who we really are, without fear, without reservation. Because, to be free from the bonds that we have created, we are able to have an impact on the universe in a way that only the core of who we can do about it. And that is the greatest gift of all we can to stop the live, and where the authenticity is not a weakness, but a strength that can move mountains, building bridges, and it can change lives, starting with our own. And, in it, everything connects, our strength, our truth, our purpose is. And when you understand it, everything is more clear, more simple, more beautiful. Because, at the end of the day, it all comes down to is this eternal quest to be true to ourselves, to live our truth. We will let our light shine brightly in the sun. And, if you make this choice, we have discovered that the universe conspires in favor of the one who accepts it, for the one you love, of whom it was revealed, in its essence, the most pure. This is one of the greatest lessons that we can learn, that our freedom comes from the time in which we choose to be who we truly are, without masks, without a doubt. The heart is open to what life has to teach us. And, in the process, we see that each step taken in the direction of the truth, it's like a seed that germinates, grows, and thrives, bringing beauty, love, peace, and purpose for the rest of our lives. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. It is when we begin to understand that true freedom is a big achievement, internal. Everything changes so subtle, but profound. It is not something that is achieved with either words or formulas for magic, but with a heart in daily to remove everything that has been imposed on all external expectations, all of the opinions that it is often in the trap of more than you think. It's as if, When we accept our own essence, we begin to unlock it with a quiet strength that was often hidden under layers of fear, shame, or social conventions. It is our authenticity and our true power, a power that you don't need the validation of anyone else, who doesn't hide behind a mask or an idealized version of ourselves. And to be free of this prison are invisible. We are not allowed to experience life in a deeper, more fully, more in tune with who you really are deep down inside. But here comes the challenge. How do you keep that connection with our inner selves in the midst of the hustle and bustle of everyday life? How can you resist those voices that are external to insist on the shape, click on it to fit into the patterns, make us to doubt who we are? The answer, perhaps, lies in the small, but powerful, and decision-making in the us, to listen, to allow ourselves to feel what we really get into your heart, even if it goes against the logic or the expectations of others. This is a journey of self-discovery that requires patience, persistence, and a dose of humility to admit that we are always under construction, always evolving. It is like a delicate dance, where we learn to listen to our steps, and to make sense of the signals from the body to the soul, and the universe that surrounds us. And, in the process, we discover that freedom is not something that is given to us from without, but of something that is born from within, out of a conscious decision to be who you really are regardless of what others might think. This understanding leads us to a kind of revelation is silent. All of our experiences, even the most difficult, is the seed of growth. Every pain, every mistake, every moment of doubt, all of this is part of a larger learning process, a trend that only happens when we allow it to happen. And then, we realize that the universe conspires in favor of those who connect to your truth. That is, the door is opened when we have the courage to be real. And it is this courage, in the majority of the time, it's a daily choice, a decision to face the fear and move forward with an open heart. Thus, in our day-to-day turn out to be a bit of an art to rediscover, reinvent itself constantly, to understand what true freedom is a state of mind, an attitude of the soul that's reflected in every action, every word, every silence, too. And to be free of these shackles and invisible, we take an important step to understanding how we are all responsible for creating our reality. Because, deep down, all of you that we live in is a projection of what we carry inside of us. When we are aligned with our essence, it's all around you are also transformed, because we see the situation, the people, the challenges from a new perspective. A perspective of hope, and of confidence in our own strength, and of the acceptance of the fact that we are in a constant state of evolution. This realization is liberating because it frees us from the weight of the past, and the limitations of what we believe in, and will lead you to a truly connected experience with the present, where everything is possible, where each step is an opportunity for growth and place. And there you have it, the sense of peace, start to install the inside of you, like a gentle breeze that calms the heart, and opens up the space to the sense of creativity, courage, and self-love to bloom. It's as if, when we accept our vulnerability, and see that it is a source of strength, and a connection to an authenticity, a more in-depth. At this point, we realize that true freedom is the ability to be kind and gentle with us, to embrace our imperfections and to recognize that each phase of the transformation, it requires patience, compassion, and faith is silent in that everything is happening exactly as it's meant to be. That's the beauty of being human, is the imperfections that make us unique, a lot of what drives us to grow, and the vulnerability is what connects us to each other in a way that's more true. And in the meantime, life continues to teach us in ways that are so subtle, that it is the greatest power we have is our choice to be true to ourselves. We abandon the quest for acceptance on the outside. Because, in the end, it all comes down to a choice. It's between a live a life that is shaped by the other, or make up a story that really reflects who we really are. And in that choice, is all for our freedom, our strength, our hope, of a future, more real, more lightweight, and more in line with his heart. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. Because, deep down, this is the choice that we make every day is like a mirror that reveals the core of the deeper, often hidden beneath layers of fear, doubts, and limitations. It is as if we are constantly in front of a cross is invisible, and where each decision leads to a different path, one that takes us closer to who we really are, or takes us away from the truth. And to this day, it seems so simple on the surface, it carries the weight of the complexity and beauty, and at the same time, because it requires the courage to look inward, to face our own shadow, and to accept that no matter how you try to control everything around us, the greater is our ability to change our vision, and, most importantly, our relationship with the world. The truth is hidden. It is that, too often, when we are so tied to the expectations of the outside, the opinion of others, those routines that were enforced from a young age, we have forgotten what true freedom is born out of an internal decision, a conscious action to reclaim our authenticity. And it's this authenticity that, in turn, is like the seed needs to be watered with the patience, care, and love for yourself. And when we grow, we begin to see life from a different perspective, a perspective on where our actions are not driven by the fear of making a mistake, but by a genuine desire to live according to our nature. In the process, we discover that the real power is not about pleasing others, or in the search for validation, but in the courage to be vulnerable, to admit our shortcomings, and to follow the rhythm of the heart, even if it means walking in the opposite direction of which it is said to be the way to go. So, at this point, it all becomes a matter of decision-making, deciding to be true to yourself, or continuing to navigate on the surface of his life. Although it may seem safe, it is devoid of meaning. It is like a key that opens the door to freedom, deep, with a freedom that is not dependent on external conditions, but on an inner connection with our truth. And, in this connection, it often requires us to abandon the masks, which let us set aside the tacks and give ourselves to the unknown, because only in that way we were able to figure out what really matters to you. It is an act of courage that transforms your fear into fuel, your suffering in the learning process, and the questions are understandable. When you make this choice, we have begun to realize that the universe conspires in favor of the one who is aligned with your essence. That is, the opportunity will arise in a natural way, and that, even in the face of these difficulties, there is an invisible force that sustains us and guides us. Because of this, the journey of self-discovery is an adventure, a constant, a dance between what we are and who we can become. It is understood that every step you take, no matter how tiny they may seem to you, it has a profound impact on our way. And, at the same time, it is to acknowledge that we are not alone on this road, we are a part of a greater whole, a network of energy that connects with you through the choices we make and the thoughts. When we woke up to this realization, it all takes on a new meaning. The difficulties are no longer barriers, and they become opportunities for growth, and the losses are transformed into the lessons and moments of silence to become a door to an inner wisdom that you'd never accessed before. And, at this point, the question is, to what extent are we willing to embrace this change? Up to that point, have the courage to look within, and you have to accept that, sometimes, the enemy is within the us? Because you are. In fact, the great secret is that the change that we seek out there is the case only when we are transformed from the inside out. And this change starts with small, daily decisions, the choice of whether to listen to the most, to forgive and to appreciate, if you allow yourself to be who we truly are without fear of judgment or rejection. It is a process of reconstruction, which requires patience, but at the same time, it shows a strength that you didn't even know we had, with a force which is born of the recognition of our own light even in the darkest times. I now want to go more in depth on this topic, because that, when you immerse yourself in the essence, we have discovered that the real power lies in our ability to create a new narrative, a story in which we are protagonists, where the choices we make reflect our values or the most heartfelt and soul find space to breathe freely with one another. This is the narrative that we have to write each and every day. You have the potential to transform not only our lives, but also to the world around us. And, in the process, we realize that the greatest revolution that happens when you decide to look into it, with honesty and with love, and building a bridge strong as to who we are and who we can become. It is as if, in doing that, the bridge is finally able to cross into a place where authenticity is our greatest ally, where all the masks will fall and the truth reveals itself to not be afraid, lighting up with each step, with the clarity of what we are exactly on the right path, even though that path is unclear and full of challenges. Because, in the end, freedom is the courage to be who you are, and willing to take on our history, and, well, life with a purpose that goes beyond the surface and the expectations of external stakeholders. And right there is where it all starts to make sense. He comments that it kind of made sense to me. And as this realization sets in, as a gentle breeze that lingers in every corner of our life, I realize that all the things that seem so hard, so very far away, in fact he was always there, hidden beneath layers of fear, of doubt, of expectations, of others. The liberty we seek is not an achievement in the outer, it is an inner discovery, a journey of quiet. It is about having the courage to look inside and see what they too often prefer to ignore. It's like opening a door for a long time he remained locked up, and when you do, you realize that the space in which we find there is a large, deep, full of possibilities, and that's only if you show up when we run away from ourselves. The truth is that, often, the biggest obstacle is not on the outside, but on the inside. It's the voice that he would have us believe that we are capable of, that you're not good enough, that your story doesn't have a value. And in such a voice, for a much more subtle, manages to build a prison, to recognize that prevent us from moving forward we need. But, at the same time, it is the same voice that, if accepted with love, you can become our greatest ally in your journey of self-discovery. Because, deep down, she does have a good intention to protect the most vulnerable. And when you understand this, you begin to realize that our own strength is not the absence of fear, but of our ability to face up to it, to enter into dialogue with it, and to follow up on the same as well, with an open heart, the soul, and the light. And it is at this point that everything connects to the courage to be who you really are, and to live our truth and stripped of their masks, or masks, what in the trap. When we allow ourselves to feel it, when we give voice to our emotions, even the ones that seem to be uncomfortable or inconvenient, we can begin to design a new narrative, a story that we, with all of its ups and downs, its pains and pleasures. It's like an act of rebellion, silent, against the little voice that tries to convince us that we are less than we can be. Because, in the background, the greater the attitude is, if you allow yourself to be vulnerable, to accept that perfection doesn't exist, and that it is precisely the authenticity of the transparency of who you are to the truth. To support the authenticity, we see that the world began to change. Not because the change in the external environment, but that is because we have changed the way we see, feel, and to stand in front of the life. And, in it, there are new opportunities, connections that are genuine, and a sense of peace that is not dependent on the approval of others, but in alignment with their knowledge of our inner selves. It's a freedom that you don't buy, that you are not gained by wealth or status, but it is born out of the recognition that we are all complete, just as you are. And, if you think about all of this, it is clear that the journey is never linear. It is full of ups and downs, moments of doubt, and in order to clarify the steps to small advances. Every decision we make, every choice we make, it brings us closer or away from the truth. And on that walk, we have learned that the most important thing is not to avoid mistakes, but to learn from them, and see them as an opportunity for growth, and the strengthening of the internal. Because, deep down, the real transformation happens when you stop seeking validation from outside, and begin to trust in our own voice, our own intuition, and the courage to follow it through. You don't know exactly what to expect from the other side of it. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. It's just that, at this point in our journey, we realize that all the things that seem so difficult to accept, and in fact it is a gateway to our complete freedom. It's an invitation to delve more deeply into our lives, to discover what really matters to you and leave behind all the masks we have created over time. Because, in doing so, we discover that the greatest gift we can give ourselves is just the courage to look within, and to recognize the authenticity of a more pure, and without the fear of being judged or rejected. And, to be free of these shackles unseen, we have begun to understand that your life becomes an expression of the most genuine to who you are, and the dance of the soul that which is heard in our purpose, the most profound and authentic. And in that moment, when you really connect with it, it is clear that our story is not a sequel to such a thing as chance, or luck, but the work that we build with our own two hands, with our own choices, and with the courage to follow the flashes in my mind. And to understand this, we understand that each and every step taken in this direction, it is a statement that we are able to create a different, more in tune with our nature. Because, at the end of the day, the real freedom is the ability to be who we are and to live our truth, and to turn every challenge into an opportunity for growth, and to follow, as always, with love and authenticity. He writes in, I feel like this is the real thing. And to understand this, we understand that each and every step taken in this direction, it is a statement that we are able to create a different, more in tune with our nature. Because, at the end of the day, the real freedom is the ability to be who we are and to live our truth, and to turn every challenge into an opportunity for growth, and to follow, as always, with love and authenticity. It's like, all of a sudden, a layer of fog began to dissipate, revealing that all of the things that seemed so very far away, so unattainable, I was right there, within us, just waiting for the right moment to be found. And it's not something that comes out of it, there is an achievement in itself, which is achieved with the effort of the external, but it is a journey of inner silence, which is about having the courage to look inward and acknowledge that they often prefer to hide in. The real transformation happens in the listener's interior, on the understanding that all of what we are looking for, in most cases, there is already within us, waiting to be activated. It's like a seed that, when you get the soil right, and with enough light, it begins to blossom and show off their vibrant colors and, even, for a time, it had been hidden in the shadows. The shadow, in fact, it is the place where many of the times, we keep our doubts, our fears, our limitations. And then, when you decide to brighten up those dark corners, something will change. We understand that the power to change our reality, not on external forces, but to our ability to make decisions, to choose from with a conscience, to turn on the limit as an opportunity for growth. What is more, we realize that the life works like a mirror, reflecting back what we carry inside of us. If you get stuck into our insecurities, the fear of judgment from others, it is only natural that a reality, we also show the limitations and obstacles. But when we look on the inside, with a love and compassion for you, and get to work on these issues, something began to change in the way we perceive the world. We look into the possibilities of where we could see the obstacles and find solutions where you could only see the problems. And it is this change in the internal echo of everything around us, because, in essence, we are the creators of our own experience, the architects of our own destiny. And, in the process, one thing becomes increasingly clear. It is the force that drives us is our desire to evolve, to learn, to set us free from the bonds that we have created along the way. This desire is what fuels our courage to move forward even when the path seems unclear or difficult. Because, at the core, we know that with every step, however small it may be, it's an affirmation of what we are capable of changing everything. It is the recognition of the life and all their turns, challenges, and surprises at every turn. It is the opportunity for constant reconnecting with our essence is pure. And this reconnection will give us the peace that nothing can replace the feeling of belonging to the universe itself, of which we are a part of something bigger than themselves, something that has always been within us, just waiting for our decision-making to gain access to it. And then, when you realize all of this, the question arises silently: the degree to which we allow our doubts, our fears, our limitations prevent us from living the truth? How many times out of fear of the unknown or uncertainty, we chose to stay in the comfort zone even when it binds us into a reality that is no longer satisfying? It is as if we are stuck in a kind of self-deception, believing that what we know is, in the limit, when, in fact, the only limit is there on our mind. And the recognition of this is an illusion. Open up space for a new perspective, get stronger and stronger, and that we could rewrite our story from the moment that you have decided to take on the responsibility for it. Every decision, every thought, every action is a seed sown in the soil of our lives. And, to nourish such thoughts with conscious intention, love, and courage, we can begin to reap the rewards of a life more in tune with our true nature. This is the magic that can happen when we stop seeking out the stuff that can only be found in our force, our truth. Our full potential is infinite. Then, it all becomes a matter of choice, of decision-making in daily to follow our authenticity, and to trust in the process of evolution. It is natural and consistent. And, in it, we see that freedom is not something that is achieved once and for all, but a continual practice of reconnecting with who we really are, no matter what the world gives us. Right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that is the realization that it all starts within us to open a portal to a dimension that is too often ignored, the power of our mind, the ability to create realities that simply by what we believe to be possible. So, it is clear that in the limit, in fact, are the stories that we tell ourselves, the beliefs that we have adopted it as absolute truth. This kind of faith is often inherited, imposed upon, or that they have acquired over time, and they function as filters or invisible. They shape our perceptions and, thus, our experiences of life. And when you start to question your filters to look behind them, and the new freedom comes the freedom to choose what you really resonates with our inner selves, to reprogram our minds, and, thus, to transform our reality. Thinking about this is to realize that we are the authors of our own, a roadmap, and that the change in the internal narrative changed the direction of history. This is not a change in the surface, but it is a great internal to a decision to abandon the old limitations and embrace a new vision of the world. The more you take, the more real, more in tune with who we really are. It is a call to courage, to challenge what we have been taught, to break down limiting beliefs, and creating a new story, a story of which we are the protagonists of mind, capable of transforming any setting in the power of our intention to do so. On the basis of this understanding, it all takes on a new meaning, a new color, a new size. The beauty of this trek is that it is never ending, ever evolving, always need in the deepest levels of who we are. And it is for this reason that, in the light of all this, we see that the real difference lies in our willingness to look within, to listen to our hearts, and to trust in the power that exists in each and every one of us. It is our essence, our light, and what makes us unique, and to be able to create a situation that will actually make it to vibrate with joy, peace, and love. And when you understand it, is a sure stand. A life is an opportunity, steady in the self-renewal, we reinventamos, to be free of all of the things that keeps us from being who we really are. In it, each step becomes a celebration of our true essence. It is an expression of our originality. And when you walk along the way, you realize that the greatest freedom is to be true to ourselves, the courage to live our truth without fear, with love, and with faith. All things are possible when we believe in our infinite potential. Right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that is the realization that it all starts within us to open a portal to a dimension that is too often ignored, the power of our mind, the ability to create realities that simply by what we believe to be possible. So, it is clear that in the limit, in fact, are the stories that we tell ourselves, the beliefs that we have adopted it as absolute truth. This kind of faith is often inherited, imposed upon, or that they have acquired over time, and they function as filters or invisible. They shape our perceptions and, thus, our experiences of life. And when you start to question your filters to look behind them, and the new freedom comes the freedom to choose what you really resonates with our inner selves, to reprogram our minds, and, thus, to transform our reality. Thinking about this is to realize that we are the authors of our own, a roadmap, and that the change in the internal narrative changed the direction of history. This is not a change in the surface, but it is a great internal to a decision to abandon the old limitations and embrace a new vision of the world. The more you take, the more real, more in tune with who we really are. It is a call to courage, to challenge what we have been taught, to break down limiting beliefs, and creating a new story, a story of which we are the protagonists of mind, capable of transforming any setting in the power of our intention to do so. On the basis of this understanding, it all takes on a new meaning, a new color, a new size. The beauty of this trek is that it is never ending, ever evolving, always need in the deepest levels of who we are. And at this time, we will be going deeper on this journey of self-discovery. It becomes clear that the real challenge isn't out there, what we see or hear, but is in all of us. It is the courage to face your own shadows, to admit that a lot of times we would prefer to conceal, and that is the big change. Because, deep down, all of this pursuit of evolution is an attempt to reconnect with the essence of pure, and it is true that, at times, it is overshadowed by the noise of the world, and by the expectations of others or even our own fears. But, when do we begin to understand that everything that limits us, it binds us, it is nothing more than a story we have learned to count on, and that we can all change the perspective. Freedom comes exactly in the act of acknowledging that we are the authors of our narrative. We have the power to choose which chapters you want to live in, the emotions you want to experience, and the decisions that shape our experience. And you are well aware of that. No matter how simple it may seem, it is the key that opens the door to a world of infinite possibilities, in which the past is no longer an anchor, and it turns out to be a lesson and a learning tool. To understand this, we understand that there is a magical formula, a secret guarded, but as a matter of practice, persistence, and self-love. This is an exercise to peel off the masks, if you allow yourself to feel it all, and without fear, and to embrace every emotion, every question, every doubt, and as an essential part of the process of growing up. And, as most of the people connect with that truth, the more it frees you of the burden of trying to please, to fit in, to be what others expect us to be. Because you are, in essence, that the quest for approval in a prison, to recognize that prevents us from living an authentic. When we begin to break down, the past life, the flowing one way, the more light, the more it is true. And there you have it. Everything that once seemed difficult, it's a chance to learn, to evolve, to become stronger. And it is at this point that you realize that it's the greatest revolution that's going on inside our minds, in our hearts and minds. Because you are, in fact, it is all a matter of mindset, attitude towards life. If we were to change our way of thinking, of looking at the world, from the us, to relate to us in the same, for the transformation becomes inevitable. And this change is not a one-off event, an achievement, in a given moment, but it's a solid construction, and a journey of self-discovery, which requires patience, courage, and, above all, of love. Because, in the end, it all comes down to one thing, our relationship with ourselves. The more you love, the understanding and the respect we have for ourselves, the easier it is to accept our own vulnerability, to recognize our strengths and move forward with confidence. And, so, each and every step that we take in the direction of truth, it is a declaration of freedom, a statement that we have been able to create an all-new story, a story of which we are the protagonists of the conscious and true in our own lives. I now want to go more in depth on this topic. Because, when you think about all of this, we've noticed that this is a journey of self-knowledge. It is also a journey of liberation and discovery of all the things that we believe to be the limits. This is nothing more than an illusion and what we could debunk. And, in doing so, we open up space for a new way of life, more in tune with who you really are, the more connected to our essence is pure. But, in order for this transformation to happen, you have to have the courage, yes, the courage to look inward and acknowledge that it is often avoided, to face your own shadows, with love and without judgment. It is important to understand that each and every strength, every doubt, every fear, It's an opportunity for growth and an opportunity to bring more and more of our deepest truth. And, in this case, what once appeared to be complicated turns out to be a gift, a chance to evolve, to set us free from the shackles that keep you from the living with the fullness. Because, at the end of the day, it all boils down to one question. Are you willing to change, to leave behind the stories that limit us to embrace our true essence? And if the answer is yes, then everything is possible, because our greatest strength lies in our willingness to change, to evolve, to create a new reality on the basis of what we are, in fact. So, think about it. You feel this message is in your heart, for it is the gateway to a life that is more conscious, more free, and more accurate. Says right there, I came to realize the truth. And so, as we go on exploring those hidden corners of the deepest in the interior, it is clear that all of the things that seem so very far away, so difficult to understand, the truth was always there, quiet, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. It is as if, in the course of the year, we have made a track, full of crossroads, obstacles, and traps, and it is only now, with the maturity of someone who had lived along, unable to see what the true north has always been there, hidden behind the layers of insecurity, fear, and doubt. It's like a light that shines gently, but they can only illuminate the path of one who's actually paying attention to it. Anyone who allows you to slow down and listen to that inner voice often gets drowned out by the noise of everyday life, by the voices outside, and a routine that seems to make it a steady lead. It was almost a struggle against one's own time. This is a journey of self-discovery that is not something that happens all of a sudden, not a magical formula, but in small steps, with choices each day to be present, to ask what you've been taught, and to allow yourself to feel it. You feel the skin, feel it in your soul, you feel in your heart. And it is that you feel that you have found a true connection with who we really are, what makes us vibrate with the things that make us feel alive, even in the face of difficulties. Because, deep down, this is the big reveal. We have always had this power, this light, this truth within itself, but often it is hidden by a coat of this makes, the expectations are beyond the control of, or a belief in limitation, of which we are not worthy of something bigger than themselves. Which leads us to realize that all the things that we are looking out for us, in some way, it is an attempt to fill a void that can only be filled through this internal connection. It is as if, in the quest for the validation of the success or approval of, the people he is trying to escape from the pain, that you'll just fade into the background when we can accept that it's part of our history, and that it is the fuel for our development. And, in the process, the most important thing is to learn to recognize the moments of weakness as a chance for growth and transformation. Because, in truth, the strength is not the absence of fear or pain, but in the courage to face them, embrace them, and move on, knowing that every step, however small it may seem to you, it's a win-win. Oh, and here comes the reflection that many of the times it is hidden beneath the surface of our actions. This is the story that we tell ourselves. A lot of times, it's a script that has been written by someone else that we don't have anymore. And this, wake up, it requires courage, a huge rewrite that narrative, of which a new word, create a version that is closer to the truth, the more closely aligned with the beats in my mind. It is a call to silent, so that we look at in the mirror and see beyond the surface, beyond the masks that we wear to protect us, and to find out the essence of the pure, the one that never ceased to exist, even when we are oblivious to it. And to understand this, we understand that the path of transformation, it is not a straight line, not a definitive conquest, but with a dance-off between what was, what is, and what it can be. Every decision, every thought, every feeling, that is, a piece of this puzzle that slowly reveals itself to be a work of art unique, custom-made for one's soul. And, in the process, we can see that you have the freedom is in your authenticity, and the courage to be who you really are, without fear of us losing, not afraid to meet. Because, deep down, this is the most important essence of our journey of recognizing that we are, first of all, being in a constant state of evolution, will be able to transform any shade into the light, no doubt for sure, pain in the learning process. I now want to go more in depth on this subject, because, when we look inside, and realize that the quest for meaning, for connection, for a fact, it is a bridge leading us to a place where there is no separation between who you are and who you want to be. It's as if, when you cross that bridge, we entered into a dimension where its authenticity, it is the only coin where silence proving to be more than a word, and this is where the simplicity of it be enough to fill in the void that is often felt. It is also a call for us to let go of the mask, the expectations, and the forward-looking statements, and you take a deep dive into what really matters, the encounter with oneself, to full acceptance of who we truly are, with all our imperfections, and light. Because, at the end of the day, this is the most freedom you can gain, the freedom to be who we truly are without fear, without judgment, and with compassion and love for all that is a part of our journey. And in that moment, you realize that all the things that we are looking out there is already within you, just waiting for us to have the courage to look within and see the truth that was always there, in silence, waiting for the moment to be discovered. Says right there, I came to realize the truth. If you've come this far, it's because that's the message he spoke to you in some way. Very few people are able to connect so deeply with your thoughts, and if you're here it's because something inside of you made sense of it. Says right there, I came to realize this fact, and you know that this is a journey of self-discovery is a gift you give yourself. Once a person allows himself to listen to what really matters to you, it all starts to make more sense for you, including all the ways that before seemed to be confusing or difficult to make. And, if that content is played on your heart, and if you sign up for the channel so we can continue together our journey, exploring the ever more of these issues that can help us understand who we are, in fact. Thus, we strengthen the connection and make room for further learning. And, of course, if you get this message brought a lot of impact to you, leave your like, because this will help in spreading the word of our story for a lot more people who need to hear what you hear. Be a part of this community for those looking for growth and authenticity. It is something that they value with each step taken in the direction of a more conscious lifestyle. So, stay with me until the end, because the next video is packed full of actionable insights that complement each other, everything that we talked about here. Click on the content to the hand, because the journey doesn't stop there, it just evolves even further with every step. And remember, in this story, our story, in this connection, you are part of something larger than life, a chance to grow, to transform, and to understand that the greatest treasure ever been to in all of us. I'm glad to have you with me, until the very end, and I hope to see you in the next chapter of this journey.